more and more companies are using AI as their main machine translation solution. And I think it's interesting, but also makes sense. AI can generate bad results, but at the same time, you can say the same about machine translation. Machine translation is reliable. It can generate very consistent results, but at the same time, the only way to influence the output is by adding glossaries or translation memories. And to train machine translation, you need to have a lot of already translated content, which obviously is not always the case. But with AI, you can provide context using different tools. One of the tools that you can use are vector databases, which I think is one of the best ways to, to add context to AI. And that's why I partnered with Crowdin to test Vector Cloud, their new solution, to test it myself, but also show you how you can set it up yourself very quickly. Before we go into details, I wanted to share with you this article that you can read later on, which I think is very interesting. Nimdzi basically shared Crowdin's experiments, and they basically tested this across different content types. So for example, here is a table where they share results, testing this on legal documents, where they tested machine translation versus different GPT models. As you can see, GPT-4o out of the box was way worse than machine translation. The moment they added vector space into GPT, the results were way better. So immediately, as you can see, it's quite promising technology. Okay, so now let's go into details. So what do you need to do first, right? Obviously, first you need an account, right? But if you do, you can test this immediately. So you go to the Crowdin store, you find Vector Cloud, and you install this. Once you do, there are two things that you have to do to set it up yourself. First, you have to set up AI provider. Very simple. You go in, you add your OpenAI key or any other key from all of these providers. Once you do have to set up your prompt. You can use the default ones, or you can create your own, or you can modify default ones. So as you see, we have basic mode where you just add all of these, or you can modify the whole prompt, which I think is amazing that you can do this inside the platform. Also, you can pick whichever model you like. As you can see, we have quite a few. Once you do, you can save this prompt and later on use this for pre-translation. Because you can create multiple prompts here, you can generate different ones, or maybe even different ones for different content types, which I think might be quite powerful for some companies. Okay, so once we have this set up, there's one more thing that we have to configure. That's Vector Cloud itself. First, we have to configure our embeddings provider. In my case, I'm using OpenAI. Very simple. We copy and paste the API key, and we pick a model that we want to use. Then we can add translation memories and glossaries. And what's cool about AI is that we can provide other file types also. Things like your style guides, your reference materials, anything that you might have, even translated document. And once that is done, there are two things that you have to do. Sync the database first, and then enable this for your prompt. In my case, it's just one prompt. Once you do all of this, you are basically good to go, and you can test it yourself. So I already created project from English to Polish. This file is already pre-translated using OpenAI without vector database, and this is with vector database. What's cool about Crowdin is that I can actually pick what to use, right? So for example, here I can use TM, or I can use machine translation, or I can use AI to pre-translate this. But yeah, once this is done, you can test it yourself and see how it actually looks like. As you can see, there are some changes here. I think this is interesting because this translation is actually pretty okay for machine translation, for AI translation. But because we provided this translation inside our document, reference document, AI decided to use this chunk for this translation instead of the default one, which is obviously very powerful, right? That you can do this just providing monolingual files. So as you can see, with vector databases, not only you can use translation memories, glossaries, but also, your other documents that you might have. And what's cool about Crowdin is that, all of this can be done inside the platform. You don't have to, go outside of Crowdin to, create your prompts. You don't have to create additional scripts or additional tools to do all of this. You can do all of this inside Crowdin without additional development, which I think is amazing, that you can basically set it up within a day. Crowdin told me that they tested this also on UI strings, but they found that the results were not very good, and which actually makes sense. I tested AI and machine translation for software localization before, and the results were always very bad. That's why usually for software localization, you just want to rely mainly on translators, because it doesn't make sense, at least for now, to use any machine translation or AI. But they did say that for longer copy, like help centers, like privacy policies and things like that, this technology can be used and you should be able to get pretty good results. So yeah, so this was Vector Cloud from Crowdin.